within the last hour. They are the first investigators to begin this probe, the grueling task to figure out what this object is.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the lights. Imagine you're driving home one night after a long shift at work. Maybe you worked late, it's midnight, you're driving, and now all of a sudden in front of you, in front of your very eyes, you see a V formation in the sky made up of yellow and orange lights. Do you pull over? Do you assume you're beyond exhausted and maybe all this is happening in your mind? Well, back in 2001, on July 14th, drivers along the New Jersey Turnpike they saw exactly that. It was a touch after midnight and cars legit pulled over to the side, got out just to get a better look at what was happening in the sky. Everybody looked at this thing for like 15 minutes. It was hovering over top of Arthur Kill Waterway, right between Staten Island and New Jersey, and one eyewitness named Joe Malvasio, he recalls the sighting as one of the most amazing things he had ever seen. And then they just vanished. Just like that. They faded out one by one, which is kind of Star Wars-like. Maybe they just kind of went zoom, zoom, went to light speed. Daniel Tarrant, lieutenant of the Carteret Police Department, he recalls seeing this with his own eyes as well. 16 golden colored lights in a V formation. Sounds terrifying. Aliens are fun and all, but keep your eyes on the road, you know? 10 and 2. Let's move on. Number 9, Stephenville sightings. Fast forwarding a few-ish years to 2008. Aliens are back. This time not in a flying goose V formation, no. This time they're in a small Texas town just full of dairy farms. Not a lot going on in that one. This time citizens reported lights in the sky, but they were white as opposed to golden. And they were also in a horizontal arc, and then they moved into vertical lines. They were moving. That's the real Donnie difference this time around. They were going around 3,000 miles per hour. These things were trucking. They must have just sucked up a bunch of cows and they're like, ow! And they just zoomed out of there. I don't know why aliens like cows so much. Even in Zelda Majora's Mask, one mission, it's like, protect these cows from aliens. I'm like, why? Is this a real thing? Is this a real concern? Why do they like cows so much? Number 8, go fast. Okay, a bit more modern now. This one was trending recently, but it was actually recorded back in 2015. It was just on the low for a while. It was part of that big alien leak that we got. Remember that? That was fun. What you're seeing here is the view from a FA-18 Super Hornet following a UAP. Yeah, we don't call them UFOs anymore. That's so 2000s. Now we call them UAPs. Unidentified aerial phenomena. Not non. I would say non. Phenomena. US Navy personnel caught this UAP flying along the East Coast, and there was no exhaust, no wings, just a fast egg. So it seems, hence the name Go Fast. A 45-foot long egg traveling 20,000 feet above the Atlantic. That's horrifying. I don't know, I think that's pretty horrifying. And then it just flew away and we haven't seen it since. Can't wait for that egg to hatch. Looking forward to another visit, I guess. I'm so scared. Moving on. Number 7, O'Hare Airport. The day was November 7th. The year was 2006 and Flight 446 was gearing up with passengers and luggage alike, ready to fly to North Carolina from Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. But the flight was a tad delayed due to the, hovering metallic craft just lurking around the airport. 12 United employees and others who were just there to fly out all reported seeing this thing. Clear as day. It was 4:15 p.m. so it wasn't at midnight. Nobody was driving delirious, humming old songs on their way home. No, it was a business day otherwise. Witnesses watched this hover for around 5 minutes before it, you guessed it, zipped off into another galaxy. It even pushed through clouds, so it wasn't a balloon or like a weather balloon or some sort. This report was one of the most read stories on the Chicago Tribune's website. I mean, of course, people are talking about aliens. No one's gonna not tune in. It was deemed a weather phenomenon in the end, because, well, of course it was. The UFO was not seen on the radar, any radar for that matter. So now we're just going off what people said. This whole list is what people said, or else we would know about it, This next one though, number 6, the USS Nimitz. Oh, here we go. Okay, we're floating out to the sea for this one, the spooky ocean. The ocean kid's back. Yet again, here we go. November 2004, the USS Princeton is part of the USS Nimitz strike group. They noted this craft, a UAP rather, thanks. When aliens UAP. At first they saw this craft not in the sky, but under the sea, which is interesting because the Go Fast video also seems like it's coming from the ocean. The ocean is so unexplored, as we know from this channel alone. There could be a plethora of aliens just waiting down there below. A few moments later, the white tic-tac shaped alien craft came out of the water, and again, a white tic-tac shaped UAP. It's always an egg shape. What's going on here? These little freaks have style. 2 FA-18 fighter jets were flying above, as earlier reports put the egg 80,000 feet above the water, so they flew in to check it out and saw it moving around below the surface. Again, no exhaust, infrared didn't pick up anything, it just lifted up and shot away 3 times the speed of sound. Pretty scary.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Gosford glyphs. The Gosford glyphs refer to the rock carvings that seem to resemble ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics that were found in New South Wales. In Brisbane Water National Park, there is a site that contains 2 8-foot-high walls that contain over 300 carvings. It is said that these glyphs are about 4,600 years old. Experts have ended up decoding the glyphs and say that in one section it talks about 2 brothers coming here from Egypt. They got shipwrecked on this land, and one got bitten by a snake and passed away. But the most striking carving is one that looks like an alien spaceship. It has a classic UFO shape with rays shooting down. Egyptologists are confused by this carving as it doesn't fit in with all the other ones, but they believe that it had to be significant in order for them to carve it. Ancient astronaut theorists believe that these markings show that people have been in contact with aliens before. In our fourth spot, we have the UFO tooth wheel. A Russian man was using coal to heat his home when he realized something odd sticking out of one of the pieces of coal. Researchers stated that it looked like a toothed wheel. Testing of this object revealed that it was 98% aluminum and 2% magnesium. What's weird is humans didn't learn to make aluminum until 1825, but this coal piece is 300 million years old, and the tooth object appears to be artificially made. This object resembles parts that are used in things like microscopes or electronic devices. So, who created this object and what was it originally used for? Scientists are still conducting tests on the object with hopes of uncovering the answers to those questions. In our third spot, we have the Betts Mystery Sphere. On March 27, 1974, the Betts family were out examining a small brush fire near their property. While doing so, the family came across a completely smooth metal sphere about the size of a bowling ball. On the sphere, there was a triangle engraved on it. They took it home only to find out that it had very strange properties. One day when the Betts son was playing his guitar in the same room as the sphere started to emit a throbbing sound from it. The sound was strong enough to hurt the family's dog's ears. This sphere could also change direction, so if you pushed it or rolled it across the floor, it could roll forward, stop, and then roll right back to you. It was also said to be able to absorb power from solar energy, as it would be more active when exposed to the sun. The sphere would also sometimes emit vibrations as if something was operating on the inside of it. Now, they refused to let anyone analyze it until they linked the sphere to paranormal activity that started happening around their house. Like doors would slam or they would hear organ music around the house. So then they let scientists analyze it and said that it was just a normal sphere. But the family is convinced that something is controlling it. Maybe something of the extraterrestrial nature. Moving on, at number 2, we have the brass bell. In 1944, a 10-year-old boy by the name of Newton Anderson was shoveling coal into his furnace at his home. That's when a piece of coal was dropped and broke in half. Inside the coal revealed a mysterious bell. The coal that he was using was said to be about 300 million years old. Back then, the dominant life form on Earth was insects. So how could it have been manufactured back then? Also, the bell contained an unusual mixture of metals, including copper, zinc, tin, arsenic, iodine, and selenium. Not a typical combination used to make objects. Now, a man named Boris Billis ended up taking the bell to the geology department at the University of Delaware. From there, they conducted studies and discovered that the bell was handmade. Now, of course, people were skeptical, thinking that the boy lied and didn't find the bell in coal. But in 2007, he underwent a polygraph test conducted by a specialist who worked on death row cases. It was discovered that he was indeed telling the truth. His report is even posted online for others to see. So people again have linked this strange object to aliens. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Wedge of Aiud. In 1974, construction workers in Romania were working in a village in Aiud. They were working near a river when they found a collection of strange objects buried 30 feet in the sand. 2 of the objects were bones from mastodons, which are very distant relatives of the elephant. Beside the bones laid a mysterious wedge-shaped object. This object contained 89% aluminum, 6% copper, and a total of 12 elements altogether. Like I mentioned previously, aluminum wasn't discovered until around 1825. Yet this wedge lay next to bones that are from around 11,000 years ago. The wedge itself is theorized to be around 10,000 years old. People believe that this object just couldn't have existed back then. An aeronautical engineer stated that this object looks exactly like a piece of a landing gear for landing aircraft. This has left researchers to believe that extraterrestrials crashed here around 11,000 years ago. and this piece is part of their spacecraft.
At number 10, a real-life pocket dimension. So there are some super cool advancements happening right now at Harvard as scientists are doing some mind-blowing experiments, including creating a whole new universe. Well, okay, granted, it's inside of a computer, but still, they're messing around with different starting conditions and tweaking the laws of physics to see what the effects it has on the formation of the universe. Kind of like playing a giant cosmic video game. But here's a twist. The better we get at simulating our own universe, the more we start wondering if our own reality is just a big simulation too. I mean, okay, just think about it. If we can simulate a universe in a lab, who's to say someone or something didn't do the same to us? It's all a bit mind-bending. Like, are we living in a computer program created by super advanced beings, or is this base reality? Who knows? Maybe we're all just part of somebody else's wild experiment. At number 9 is this artifact from hell. The fiery pits of hell in many beliefs is thought to be a different realm, or in other words, a parallel universe. Yeah, it's a stretch, but whatever. Some say that Aleister Crowley, this dude who dabbled in mysticism back in the day, tried to chat with spirits from this realm, and legend has it that he listened to these spirits and, using their specific instructions, made a sort of scribe called the Enochian tablets. These glass tablets are etched all over with satanic sigils, which supposedly help strengthen the means of communication with the other side, kind of like a phone signal booster for the dead. Now, although these artifacts were made by some crazy dude here on Earth, the instructions which the cursed objects were designed with are thought to have somehow made their way from another dimension, aka hell. Some folks believe these objects can bring bad juju and even open doors to unwanted visitors from the great beyond. If you're enjoying the video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and hitting that notification bell. It helps the video get seen by more people, and it's free, and do it. Just do it. Just do it. At number 8 is aliens. So not so long ago, the US government and the Pentagon basically came out and said, hey, those things flying around that we tried to tell you were weather balloons, well, they're real and we actually have no clue what they are. They call them unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP for short, but it's basically just fancy talk for UFOs. Now here's the kicker. Nobody's got a clue where these things are from. Well, it's more probable that they're from outer space, like aliens cruising by for a visit. There's no reason they couldn't have come from another dimension, like a parallel universe. I mean, the way these things fly and completely disregard and just flat out ignore our laws of physics is like literally nothing we've ever seen before. So, I mean, who's to say? Another theory suggests that these objects aren't spaceships coming from alternate universes, but are actually the physical result of an extra-dimensional being or object passing through our third-dimensional plane. The interdimensional UFO hypothesis suggests that these sightings are the result of experiencing other dimensions that coexist separately alongside our own, and the UFOs are just our 3D brain failing to comprehend the extra-dimensional object. So who knows, maybe we've got some interdimensional tourists checking us out right now. But hey, that's just a theory. At number 7, the man from Taured. Let's take a break from space and talk about a seriously bizarre occurrence that basically proves the existence of beings from parallel universes visiting us, whether intentionally or accidentally. So it's July 1954 at the Tokyo airport. This guy shows up, but his passport says he's from a place called Taured. Now, the passport looked genuine with all the security features and everything, except for the fact that there's no place on Earth called Taured. And get this, his money was from a bank that nobody knew, and the company he claimed to work for had no records of his existence. Even the hotel he booked seemed to have never heard of him. Now here's where it gets even weirder. By the next day, he had completely disappeared, like poof. Vanished into thin air. Now, where was this dude from? Was it a parallel universe mix-up? I mean, imagine a world where Taured exists, but not here. Maybe he accidentally hopped from this world to ours through some weird space-time hiccup? And maybe the government abducted him. Maybe. I mean, maybe lizard people. I don't know. At number 6 is the Bermuda Triangle of space. So imagine you're an astronaut chilling up there in the International Space Station, just doing your thing, when suddenly, bam, you get hit by this crazy burst of light that wakes you up from your snooze, even though your eyes are shut tight. Well, that's what some space peeps experience when they cruise through this area called the South Atlantic Anomaly, or SAA for short. Sort of like the Bermuda Triangle, but in space. Now, what causes this cosmic alarm clock is our planet's magnetic field isn't perfectly lined up, so it messes with the rings of charged particles called the Van Allen radiation belts. These belts hang around Earth, but there's a spot right over the South Atlantic where they get super close to the surface, like 200 kilometers close, which, I mean, isn't that close by our means, but relatively speaking. When the space station rolls through this zone, computers go haywire, astronauts see random flashes of light, thanks to the radiation tickling their eyes, and even the trusty Hubble telescope takes a break from stargazing.
Number 5, Roswell. I had to include Roswell in this list, of course. The one that kicked it all off. Kind of. This one was in the newspapers. Right in the front page, it says, RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. The year was 1947. This is on a newspaper. Are you kidding me? I'd be like, what? But this time around, we have hundreds of witnesses, and they claim to have a connection to this incident. Yes, I think that alien was also a Libra. I feel connected to it. This famous event, I somehow feel connected to it. Awesome. Yeah, there were numerous books published around the 80s about it, and apparently what really happened that day in Roswell, New Mexico, was a flying saucer crash landed, and there were one or more aliens inside. Also, they were pronounced dead at the scene, hence the crash. Pretty wild step up from go fast, but okay, I'll take it. In 1997, the Air Force decided to put their 2 cents in on the whole 50th anniversary, and they released a report called Case Closed, Final Report on the Roswell Crash. And then you look into it, and the New York Times got involved saying no to pretty much everything. Nope, there were no ships, no bodies, no crash, no artifacts, just nope. But I mean, that's what I would say if I was trying to cover up some shit. I'd be like, nope. Was there a crash? No. Are aliens real? No. Number 4, Mount Rainier. Not to be confused with Mount Chiliad's aliens. Those are also pretty scary. Mount Rainier, located in Washington, was bumping and buzzing back in 1947. Pilot Kenneth Arnold was the first modern report on a flying saucer, believe it or not. This one's pretty historical. Or flying egg, apparently. We don't know. Kenneth saw 9 circular-shaped objects flying in formation, the classic formation, and they were flying at twice the speed of sound. So the Idaho pilot told the Air Force, and they laughed it off. He took this claim to his grave. Kenneth stood by what he saw until his death in 1984. He saw UAPs, he saw multiple of them, and he reached out to Seattle Times in 1977 saying, I made my report because I thought it was my duty. It was the only proper and American thing to do. I saw what I saw. Anytime somebody says, I saw what I saw, my heart goes, whoa. It's like, okay, I kind of believe him. Do we believe him? Comment down below. Number 3. Leveland flaming thing. Nice, we love that. Imagine opening the newspaper in 1957 and on the front cover you read, Leveland flaming thing brings world knocking at city's door. What does it even mean? Back in 1957 in Leveland, Texas, multiple eyewitness reports began to flood in about a, you guessed it, egg-shaped object or this circular flash of light, one of the two, jetting across Leveland skies. I just like saying Leveland, if I'm being honest. Leveland. One witness recalls the object making a loud humming noise as it flew by, which is different. It's different than the other accounts that we've heard so far. The egg shape keeps coming back, but this is an encounter where it's been reported as loud, with a great rush of wind, not silent and egg-like. On top of that claim, the witness's car radio began to go haywire at the same time. The radio thing, I don't know, that's not too crazy. Growing up, my computer speakers would always tell me if a call was coming in. The Air Force commented on it, saying this was just a phenomenon caused by electrical storms. It was a ball of lightning, they say, back in 1957. Okay, it was a phenomenon or phenomena, one of the two. I won't tell you. Next part, I'll tell you. Number 2, Valençol. Will you be my Valençol? Please don't, actually, this one's really scary. Valençol, France, aka France's Roswell. That's a pretty loaded nickname right there. Back in July 1965, Maurice Massé swears to a close encounter with an alien. Like an actual, like person to person. He says that he saw not 1, but 2 aliens landing a spherical UAP in an open field. And if you're wondering how he knew there were 2 in the raft, it's because they got out of the ship right after landing. Uh-oh, I'd be so scared at that point. Aliens in a field of flowers. How beautiful must this first contact be? The French farmer recalls one of these things aiming some sort of like laser beam at him, and then moments later the guy was paralyzed. So, I don't know, maybe aliens are kind of mean. After that moment, the aliens flew off, but they checked out the area a bit first, you know? They got in, picked a flower, paralyzed the dude, and then just zipped off. Do we buy this? I mean, this was posted in the newspaper. It was explained in the lovely La Dauphine paper, so who knows? And finally, number 1, the Great Pyramid of Cholula. There are many parallels between Egyptian and Maya civilizations, and I had to end this list by connecting a few. The 2 cultures are so far apart historically and, well, geographically. They'd never made contact, they never traded goods, but both these famous pyramids in both these places are made with steps, and both have stone serpents just engraved on them. The vault arches are strikingly similar, and hieroglyphs within share a lot of the same symbolism. These hieroglyphs included advanced mathematics that they say was bestowed upon them, also from these sky gods. Were these just landing sites for our alien ancestors? Possibly. Maybe all these cultures and civilizations throughout these years are just reporting the same thing because aliens are real. I don't know, I hope not. Anyways, that's the end of this list. So many aliens.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Dropa stones. In 1938, archaeologist Dr. Chipote led an expedition near the Bayan-Har Mountains in China. That's when they came across some interesting caves. These caves held evidence that ancient life once lived in them. After searching the caves, they found weird discs buried under thick layers of dust. These discs resembled phonograph records. Researchers dated them to be over 10,000 years old. Now, they didn't play music like a typical record, but instead they had hieroglyphics carved into them. When studied, it told a story about a spaceship that crashed into the mountains. Aboard the spaceship were people that called themselves the Dropa. Then later on, the discs were sent to Moscow for further studying. That's when they were placed on this special turntable, and the discs would vibrate or hum in a weird rhythm, as if an electric charge was passing through them. After that, research on the discs stopped. Or some believe research continued and they found/contacted alien life, which they just didn't tell the public. Either way, this is said to be one of the most mysterious artifacts in the world. In our 9th spot, we have the alien. And guys, here's just your little friendly reminder to hit that thumbs up button. In 2017, a man in Cusco made a pretty terrifying discovery in the southern desert of Peru. The artifact he found looks exactly like a tiny mummified alien head. An X-ray concluded that the skull had very alien-type features. The skull had angled eyelids with shallow eye sockets, 2 nostrils, and a narrow slit-type mouth. Now, whoever was in possession of the skull actually covered it in a type of clay, so that's what you see on the top of it, which makes it appear to look more like an alien. Researchers discovered that it is indeed a real skull, but they don't know what it belonged to. So it may just be that this skull belonged to a real-life alien from space. Moving on to number 8, we have the Wedge of Aiud. Back in 1974, construction workers in Romania were working in a village in Aiud when they came across some pretty weird objects. These objects were buried 30 feet in the sand by a river. 2 of the objects were bones from mastodons, which are very distant relatives of an elephant. I mean, that's cool and all, but the thing that really caught their attention was this mysterious wedged-shaped object that was located by the bones. This object contained 89% aluminum, 6% copper, and a total of 12 elements all together. Here's the thing. Aluminum was discovered around 1825, yet this wedge lay next to bones that are from 11,000 years ago. The timeline just doesn't add up. The wedge itself is theorized to be around 10,000 years old. People believe that this object couldn't have existed way back then. An aeronautical engineer stated that this object looks exactly like a piece of a landing gear for landing aircrafts. This has left researchers to believe that aliens crashed their craft from space maybe 11,000 years ago. In our 7th spot, we have the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone is a piece of a stone slab found in 1799. It has a message carved into it written in 3 different types of scripts. You got ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, Demotic scripts, and ancient Greek. This stone is the key to decipher Egyptian scripts. In 1814, British scientist Thomas Young started studying the stone and made some progress on cracking it. But it wasn't until 1822 to 1824 that the hieroglyphic code was finally cracked. This was done by French linguist Jean-François Champollion. It's hypothesized that the slab was created in Egypt in 196 BC, but we still don't know who created it. Now, this one is more of a conspiracy, but it's actually thought that the Rosetta Stone was made by aliens, and they delivered it to us from space. Obviously, there's no solid evidence to support this. In fact, archaeologist Paul Wasson believes the Rosetta Stone has lessons to teach us about creating a message that will allow us to communicate with aliens. Because you know, we can't just assume that aliens speak English. In our 6th spot, we have the UFO tooth wheel. This is another artifact that is said to have come from aliens in space. So basically, back in the day, a Russian man was using coal to heat his home when he saw something sticking out of a piece of coal. He reported his findings, and researchers said it looked like a tooth wheel to some device. After tests were run on it, it was discovered that it was composed of 98% aluminum and 2% magnesium. Now remember what I said before? Humans discovered how to first make aluminum in 1825. But the piece of coal this artifact was found in was 300 million years old. So how is that even possible? In fact, the tooth wheel resembles parts that we currently use in microscopes and electronic devices. Again, back in the day, they didn't have any of those devices, so what the heck. Scientists are still running tests on this object to one day figure out who created it and figure out what its original purpose was.
At number 5 is the miniature black hole created in a lab. Just like that Simpsons episode where a black hole created by a hadron collider starts off as a cute little guy before it eventually consumes all of Springfield and eventually the entire planet, scientists are well underway in creating a black hole right here on Earth. I mean, okay, not the scary like universe gobbling type, but like one that lets us peek into the secrets of space. As it turns out, making one in a lab is a huge goal for scientists, aiming to unlock mysteries about gravity and the teeny tiny world of quantum mechanics. And this opens up all kinds of possibilities as we attempt to learn more about extra dimensions. Now picture a universe having more dimensions beyond the 3 of space and the 1 of time that we're used to. And in these extra dimensions, which would be imperceivable to our 3D monkey brains, gravity would be way stronger. So if we could create a black hole in a lab, it could open a portal to these other dimensions. Now, don't get too worried about the black hole, sucking everything up, because it wouldn't really do that. Even if we could create a teeny black hole, it would disappear like a flash, not able to sustain itself with its own mass. But the real mind-bending thing is that if we could make a proper black hole in a lab, it might help us crack the code on these hidden dimensions. At number 4 is the mirror dimension. If you thought the last entry was crazy, just wait to hear about this. Imagine if we could open a door to a parallel universe, one where everything is similar but also kind of different. Now, allow me to explain. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory wants to shoot a bunch of tiny particles through a 50-foot tunnel, pass them by a big magnet, and then slam them against the wall. Sounds pretty simple, right? But if everything goes right, some of those particles might turn into mirror image versions of themselves and zap through that wall. And if that happens, it could be the first clue of a whole nother universe hanging out right next to ours. Now, this mirror world isn't like what you'd expect from the movies. There's no alternate versions of you or evil twins, but it could have its own physics, its own rocks and planets that are totally different from what we know. And the experiments at this university might be able to find it. At number 3 is Hoag's object. I think I pronounced that right. Imagine stumbling upon a galaxy that looks like a cosmic donut in the vastness of space. Meet Hoag's object, a weird eye-shaped galaxy that's unlike anything astronomers have ever seen before in our entire universe. Picture this, it's essentially a bright yellow older core surrounded by a ring of shiny young blue stars, but in between them, nothingness. Discovered in 1950 by astronomer Arthur Hoag, this galaxy left scientists scratching their heads. One theory suggests that maybe billions of years ago a smaller galaxy zoomed through the larger one, shaping this odd structure. But there are no signs of nearby galaxies that could have caused this, and the core spins way too slowly for such a collision. Adding to the galactic mystery, if you peek closely, hidden within Hoag's object, there's a smaller galaxy that takes the same eye-looking ring shape as its larger counterpart, right there where 1 o'clock would be if the galaxy were a giant cosmic clock. Yeah, you heard me right, a galaxy within another galaxy. Galaxy Inception. How did this cosmic oddity came to be? Who knows? Maybe parallel universes or something. At number 2, an asteroid from another system. Imagine you're this telescope-wielding astronomer dude scanning the skies in Hawaii, and suddenly you see this weird long thing zipping through space. That's Oumuamua, a name that's as bizarre as the thing itself. It's shaped like a giant space cucumber just cruising by. I mean, it's massive, probably a kilometer long, but crazy skinny given its length, only about 170 meters wide. And it's not from our neck of the cosmic woods. No, it's racing way too fast to be a part of our solar system's gang. Scientists think it rolled in during the Victoria era, but only God knows where it hung out before that. What's even stranger is that its sheer speed is a wonky trajectory, as it definitely doesn't behave by something that's bound to the sun's gravitational pull. This motion might be described if the object were a comet, as ice melts as it's approaching the sun, propelling the comet like a jet does a plane. But if that were the case, the flying giant space cucumber would have a visible tail as it leaves behind a trail of vapor pushing the object off course, but that just isn't the case. Cue the alien theories! Maybe it's a UFO with a solar sail getting pushed around by the sun's rays, but we can get get even crazier. Some suggest that it might be from a whole other universe. I mean, think about it. Oumuamua's trajectory isn't just wonky because of the sun's gravity. It's almost as if there's something else tugging on it. Maybe it's from a place where the rules of space are totally different. At number 1 is the Anita experiment, the scientific discovery that proves the existence of parallel universes. The claim begins with a hook that would tingle the spidey senses of any sci-fi enthusiast. Imagine a remote research station in Antarctica where scientists diligently hunt for cosmic rays. Now that's intriguing enough on its own, but it gets even better. You see, since they were looking for cosmic rays, they had their instruments oriented towards the sky. That is, until researchers suddenly detected not one, but 2 signals shooting out of the ground beneath them, defying all logic. Because, you see, these rays of neutrinos are supposed to come from supernova, so it's super improbable that the rays are passing through the entire mass of the Earth without coming into contact with a single particle of matter, only to land on a tiny weather balloon in the sky. Literally impossible. To make sense of all this, scientists delved into over 40 papers offering a buffet of explanations. Dark matter, elusive particles called sterile neutrinos, and then, the grandest of them all, parallel universe. Essentially, a mirror image of ours, but where time runs backwards. Imagine that. This audacious idea isn't pulled out of thin air either. It's rooted in actual science, a theorem which hints that alongside our universe, an antimatter universe stretches backwards through time before the Big Bang. But okay, let's just tap the brakes, because a more down-to-earth theory has also surfaced. That's right, hold your antimatter horses, because it turns out it's more likely that these signals were simply reflected off of ice or skipped off subglacial lakes. The truth, it seems, is more grounded, reflecting high-energy particles, not parallel dimensions. Sorry, y'all. I mean, unless you want to go ahead and put away Occam's razor, then definitely take the extra dimensions.
Starting off this countdown, we have King Tut's dagger. Upon excavating the tomb of King Tut in 1925, scientists discovered a long 34-centimeter dagger wrapped up with King Tut. Now, back then there was no way for them to do studies on the dagger without damaging it. However, an X-ray done in 1970 showed that the dagger was made of some interesting compounds, primarily nickel and iron. Back then, iron was considered very rare. And how could it have been composed of iron when his burial predated Egypt's Iron Age by nearly 2,000 years? So right there, that's a little shocking. As a result of the iron and nickel composition, scientists have declared it was made from extraterrestrial metal. Now, there are 2 theories here. One is that a meteorite crashed down and then they used that to make the dagger. Theory 2 is that the dagger was made by aliens and dropped or left by them accidentally. I mean, some honestly do think that the ancient Egyptians were in contact with aliens. If that's the case, then the dagger might have originally been from the ETs.
Coming in number 9 is the Dropa stones. The Dropa stones are maybe the wildest discovery when it comes to artifacts from space. These are basically CDs from 10,000 years ago that have a whole story on them that talk about aliens crash landing on Earth and then giving some tools to humans. Okay, let me backtrack a little bit. These stones were found in a cave in China. At first glance, they seem to have hieroglyphs all over them, and almost like they were created for a phonograph. When deciphered, there was a whole story of aliens coming to Earth that were named the Dropa. They crashed on Earth, met humans in the area, gave them tech, fixed their ship, and then bounced. When you play these Dropa discs, they hum and vibrate like they're creating some sort of energy. And that is where all the research stops. On the record, these things were just put away and no one ever looked at them again. But you and I both know that is a bunch of horse poop. These were obviously taken somewhere to be researched behind a watchful eye.
Coming in at number 8, we have the US Delta II rocket. Back in January of 1997, a woman named Lottie Williams was out minding her own business on a nice little walk. To her surprise, she was greeted by a streak of light in the sky. All of a sudden, she felt something brush her shoulder. Turns out that this thing that brushed her was part of a US Delta II rocket. The rocket was launched in 1996. A year later, it came crashing down in pieces. Lottie said when she felt something brush by, she turned around and saw something on the ground. It was a small piece of burnt mesh. Now, she is extremely lucky because had it been a bigger piece, it probably would have knocked her down and killed her. Here's the thing, analysis shows that it's most likely part of the Delta II rocket. Most likely, still not 100% confirmed. For all we know, that could be a piece from an alien spacecraft.
Coming in at number 7, we have the pyramids. Here's the thing, do I actually think that pyramids came from space? Do I think that aliens came down from space and came to humans and were like, dude, dudes, we're aliens. We're from the future. We got tech. It's so cool. It's gonna blow your socks off, and we're gonna make a civilization so sick with some big triangles that come out of the ground, and you can put your coolest dead bodies in them. No, I don't think that. I think that the pyramids were made with an insane amount of manpower because back then life was cheaper than it is now, and you could just have an army of slaves move rocks until they physically couldn't, and then could just bring in a new army. That's how I think they did it. Also, no one had a phone back then, so you couldn't even get distracted while you were on the job. What are you gonna try and do? Build a sandcastle? That would have been impossible because there was literally no water around. But that being said, there are a lot of people who think that the pyramids could have been built by some alien coming down to Earth and giving humans the tools to build these monuments with the precision of having them pointing at north, east, south, and west, with some people thinking that they are power plants that could create electricity. I think most of the people who think that have never been to Egypt, but you know it's good to make those assumptions after watching 30 minutes worth of YouTube videos.
Moving on to number 6, we have the Russian tank. In March of 2011, a man was out hiking in northwestern Colorado when he came across something strange. The object was round and warm to touch. It was also in a crater, meaning whatever this was had just crashed down from space. The hiker then called military aerospace officials. Later, it was revealed that this weird object was the tank from a Russian Zenit 3 rocket. The rocket was launched in January. 2 months later, it came crashing back down. Fun fact, it's one of only a handful of space debris to be found in the US. But seriously, imagine being out for a walk and seeing something fly towards you from the sky. Like damn, that's another thing to worry about, being killed by space debris. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the iron beads. Back in the day, it was found that ancient Egyptians created iron beads. They were carefully hammered into thin sheets, and then they would roll these into tubes. Then they would string them together and make a necklace. While studying them, they found the necklaces were over 5,000 years old. It was also revealed that the beads were made out of pieces from meteorites, and then they would hammer that down. Not only that, but it was revealed that the Egyptians had a more advanced understanding of metalsmithing than we originally thought. Moving on to number 4, we have the valuable meteorite. There's a meteorite out there that is more valuable than gold. It was April 23, 2019, and a weird colorful orb flew across the skies of Costa Rica. It was orange and green in color. This object was about the size of a washing machine. And then, just like that, it broke up into pieces that got scattered between 2 villages. One of the pieces was discovered by a woman named Marcia Campos Munoz. She heard the rumble and saw something crash down on her property. She was one of the few people to find a piece of this meteorite. Now, meteorites show up all the time on Earth, so what's so special about this one? Well, it turns out they belong to a rare class called carbonaceous chondrites. They formed when the solar system was still developing. It's believed that these pieces of meteorites will help us figure out what early solar system life was like. Moving on, at number 3, we have the ancient battery. Back in 1936, outside of Baghdad, a weird discovery was made. They discovered a small clay jar with an iron rod hanging in a copper cylinder in it. This was then soldered shut and sealed with asphalt. Upon analyzing it, it was discovered to produce small amounts of electricity. In fact, researchers said it looks like an ancient battery. However, we still don't know who created this and what its purpose was. But many people believe that this was a battery from an alien spacecraft that crashed down on Earth several thousands of years ago. Aliens are said to be very advanced species, so it could be that they figured out batteries and electricity way before humans ever did. Coming in at number 2, we have the alien spacecraft. In 2017, a Hawaiian man with a telescope spotted this weird object leaving the solar system. This object was named Oumuamua, and it's considered the first known interstellar object detected passing through the solar system. Here's the thing. Many people believe that this thing is an alien spacecraft. Let me explain. This thing looks like a space rock, but it's not a comet or asteroid. It's too small and oddly shaped to be an asteroid. The thing is long and shaped like a rocket. No asteroids that we know of are shaped like that. Not only that, but astronomers thought the first space rock to enter our solar system would be a ball of ice and rocks. A comet. But usually there's a cloud of dust and gas surrounding comets, and this object doesn't have that. So then what on earth is it? On top of that, it's said to emit blue colors from it. As a result, rumor has it that it's actually an alien spacecraft. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Hypatia stone. In 2013, a weird stone made its way to Earth from space. This stone has managed to leave scientists baffled. They claim it's unlike any other extraterrestrial rock ever found. In 2015, while analyzing the stone, they found it was not part of a meteorite or comet. So they were puzzled as to where it came from. Researcher Jan Kramer said, and I quote, "The stone's matrix contains a high amount of very specific carbon compounds, called polyaromatic hydrocarbons, or PAH, a major component of interstellar dust, which existed even before our solar system was formed." Meaning, this stone is super old. Like, it was around before the sun and planets had formed. It's mind-blowing, and they still haven't found out all about it.
So starting off this list strong, in at number 10, let's talk about the 1954 meteorite that fell from space and it actually hit someone. This right here is Anne Elizabeth Fowler Hodges. She became a part of history when she survived being struck by a fragment of a meteorite. I mean, how many people can say that? The Sylacauga meteorite is the first documented extraterrestrial object to have injured a human being. So let me tell you guys what happened. A piece of this meteorite crashed through the roof of a farmhouse located in Alabama, and it bounced off a large wooden console radio, and then it hit Hodges while she was napping on the couch. Imagine like that's how you woke up. You woke up by being hit by a piece of meteorite that came from outer space. This made headline news, and I was looking into what happened to that meteorite because maybe that woman can sell it and become super rich. I'm not exactly sure on how much they sell for, but probably a lot, right? But this meteorite was actually confiscated by the police, who turned it over to the United States Air Force. So yeah, this woman lucked out. I don't know why she wasn't able to keep it. Moving into number 9, we have the Roswell UFO incident that took place in 1947. Take a look at this. This came crashing down to Earth, and if you search this into Google, you can find these images as well. Clearly looks like an alien, and also you can see more UFO pictures. Can this really be a UFO crash site? Well, there are obviously many conspiracy theories around this crash because the US military stated that it is a United States Army Air Force balloon crash, while others say that this might be one huge cover-up and it's actually an alien spacecraft. What do you guys believe? I'm going with it might be an alien spacecraft. And at number 8, we have a piece of the moon. It's always scarier taking pieces of the moon because you just never know what type of airborne bacteria can live on it. There was actually a lunar meteorite found in northern Africa not too long ago, and just a tiny piece of it sold for more than $600,000. Imagine a piece of the moon just fell into your backyard, making you instantly a millionaire. There hasn't been a long-term human exposure to the lunar environment, but apparently the exposure to lunar dust can actually result in severe health risks from direct exposure or exposure from over time. So saying that, whoever owns a piece of the moon, hopefully they're keeping it well contaminated. Alright, number 7, you guys saw it in the intro of this video, you saw a little clip of it, but let's talk about the 2017, which was not too long ago. Well, I'm talking about the discovery of the Oumuamua, which was the first interstellar object ever detected in our solar system. Oumuamua, hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. Probably not, but in Hawaiian, it actually translates to first-time visitor from far away. Of course, when this object was made public, millions of people questioned, is it aliens? Others ask, where did it come from, or what does this mean for us? Could this be an invasion on Earth? Well, scientists from Harvard University believe yes. This could actually be signs of alien civilization. When you hear about a bold claim like that, coming from Harvard scientists, it actually makes you wonder. When Oumuamua traveled through our solar system, it actually didn't travel on a normal path. And as you know, as normal objects would travel in, and it's usually due to the sun's gravity, but instead it made its own path. So it makes us think maybe this thing was powered by some sort of thrusters. So it could be plausible that it was a spacecraft. Number 6, we have a satellite that fell to Earth. Have you guys heard the story of the Cosmos 954? Well, Me neither. I had to do the research for this one. Well, back on January 24th in 1978, a Soviet satellite malfunctioned, which prevented a safe separation of its onboard nuclear reactor, so pieces of the cosmos entered Earth, shattering around northern Canada. Now, this is pretty messed up. Luckily, no one was killed by this. Just imagine if like North Korean satellite crashed on American soil. I mean, that might spark World War III. So there's actually a law that everyone has to follow when it comes to space. So under the terms of the 1972 Space Liability Convention, whoever launched an object into outer space is liable for damages caused by that object. So saying that, the Canadian government billed the Soviet Union over $6 million for the cost of the cleanup and also for additional compensation for future unpredicted expenses. But the USSR paid just $3 million. From a failed USSR satellite to something that you would never expect coming from space, or should I say you wouldn't expect someone coming from space. An alien?
Coming in at number 5, we have the Roman Decahedron. Some sort of 3D octagon, and no one knows what they do. Like 0 people have been able to figure out what these things were for, and one of the weirdest parts about them is that we have found a lot of them. They seem to all come from the Roman era and were moved out to every territory that the Romans controlled. There are over 100 of these strange devices that have been found, and there are several guesses as to what they could do. Some people think they could have been some sort of status symbol. To have one in your home would have meant you were rich and in good graces with the Emperor of Rome. They might have just been decoration, or they could have been some sort of communication device from space, and it's how the Romans were able to be so powerful.
In our 4th spot, we have the Roswell Rock. This rock is a very weird rock with a detailed design. The rock is uniform in color, unusually smooth, and has a design protruding from the surface of it. This rock was found in Roswell, New Mexico in 2004 by a man named Robert Ridge. He was a deer hunter. Apparently, he found this rock half sticking out of the ground and was shocked by its unusual and perfect design, as well as its strange magnetic properties. Upon analyzing it, people have realized that the rock's design actually matches a crop circle that was found in England in 1996, which makes this whole thing that much weirder. Now, some are convinced that this rock is some message sent by aliens. After experts have analyzed the design, they notice that it's a pattern of a sun and a moon inside of a circle. A woman named Linda Moulton Howe, who's an investigative journalist, believes that aliens are trying to teach us about astronomy with this rock, or that the rock contains a date for some event that has or will happen. It's pretty spooky. I just wish we knew more about this weird rock.
Coming in number 3, we have fungus. When you look at all the living beings on this planet, why has fungus got its own spot? I mean, those things are just plants, right? Wrong. Fungus are some of the most advanced life forms on the planet. They have functionality that spreads in extreme diversity from species to species. Some of them have the ability to mind control a host and then kill it so it spreads spores. Others have advanced communication techniques that allow them to find the most direct routes to one another. Because of this, there's speculation that fungus might have come here by aliens, or might have touched down on Earth via meteor.
And at number 2, we have the Betts Mystery Sphere. On March 27, 1974, the Betts family were out examining a small bushfire near their property. While doing so, the family came across a completely smooth metal sphere. It was about the size of a bowling ball. On this sphere, there was a triangle engraved in it. They took it home only to find that it had strange properties. One day when their son was playing his guitar in the same room as this sphere, it started to emit a throbbing sound from it. The sound was strong enough to hurt the family's dog's ears. This sphere can also change directions, so if you push it across the floor, it will roll forward and then stop and then roll back all on its own. It's also said to be able to absorb power from solar energy. It's said to be more active when exposed to the sun. Now, they refused to let anyone analyze it until they linked the sphere to paranormal activity that was happening around the house. Like doors would slam by themselves and they would hear this weird organ music. Now, scientists have analyzed it and they said it was just a normal sphere. How late? But the family is convinced that something is controlling it. Maybe something of the extraterrestrial nature. Seriously, where did this sphere come from and what's the deal with its weird properties? Seems like it came from space.
And coming at the number 1 spot, we have alien coins. So who do we always see plastered on coins? Well, it's our most rich and famous people, the ones that define our culture at the time, or the rulers that control the area, and if you don't put their face on the money, they will for sure cut your head off. Well, then there's a bunch of questions as to why some alien coins were found in Egypt. There was a massive renovation done on some homes in Egypt, which dug up one of the strangest artifacts to date. There were a series of coins that were found that had not a queen's head on them, or a pharaoh, but an alien dude. Like the one that looks like he's pulled right out of the movies, like the green dude with the big head and the green skin, you know, all that stuff going on. You guys know what I'm talking about. But this dude had like a toga on, so he kind of looked a little bit boss. There were also several coins that were found that seemed to have spaceships on them. If the ruler theory is right, there could have been an alien ruler who came down from the stars in ancient Egypt. Someone who maybe crash landed and needed to get his ship fixed, and while he was waiting for his repairs to be done, he was worshipped like a god.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Kosu artifact. In 1963, 3 rock hunters were exploring the mountains of eastern California with hopes to find geodes to sell at their gift shop. They gathered a bunch of them and took them home, where they proceeded to cut them in half. However, one of the geodes practically broke their new crystal saw in half when trying to cut it open. Instead of finding crystals, they actually discovered something more intriguing. Inside the rock mass was a perfectly circular porcelain-like section. In the center of the section was a tiny magnetic pin. An X-ray of the rock revealed that there was also a spring or helix at one of the ends. From there, people realized that it resembles a modern-day spark plug. However, it is theorized that this rock is around 500,000 years old. But spark plugs were not invented until the 19th century. So this has left people thinking that it's proof of alien visitors, saying that it came from their spacecraft. Meaning, they're way more clever than we realized, since they created this technology thousands of years before we did. Others believe that it was left behind by time travelers. Then you have the skeptics that have tried to debunk it by saying it simply was just a spark plug from the 1920s and then someone threw it out, so it's just a piece of someone's trash that we're all hyping up. But honestly, you choose what you want to believe. In our 9th spot, we have the Roswell Rock. The Roswell Rock, as featured in a couple of episodes of the show Ancient Aliens, is a very weird rock with a detailed design. The rock is uniform in color, unusually smooth, and has a design protruding from the surface of it. This rock was found in Roswell, New Mexico in 2004. A man named Robert Ridge, a deer hunter, apparently found this rock half sticking out of the ground. He also discovered that it had strange magnetic properties. Upon analyzing it, people have realized that the rock's design exactly matches a crop circle that was found in England in 1996. Some people believe that it's just a man-made copy of the crop circles. Other people believe that it conveys some sort of message from aliens. After experts have analyzed the design, they noticed that it's a pattern of a sun and a moon inside a circle. Linda Moulton Howe, an investigative journalist, believes that the sun, moon, and skies are present throughout the solar system and all the galaxies, meaning maybe aliens are trying to teach us about astronomy. Or the rock contains some sort of date for some event that has happened or will happen. Making our way down the list at number 8, we have the ancient airplane. Researchers have noticed that the Incas left behind some very interesting objects. One of the more notable ones are the figures that are small and golden that closely resemble modern jet planes. Upon analyzing them, people have noticed that the figures have what appears to be wings, a stabilizing tail, and landing gears. Ancient astronaut theorists believe that they are a figure of planes. But we know that planes were not created back then. This has led people to believe that they indeed were in contact with extraterrestrials that had advanced technology. Whereas others think they're supposed to represent flying creatures like bees or fish. But again, it's for you to decide. Coming in at number 7, we have the alien head. Okay, this one, I can't lie, it's pretty weird. In 2017, a man in Cusco came forward with an artifact that he claims he found in the southern desert of Peru. This artifact appears to be a mummified life form, eerily resembling an alien. An X-ray concluded that the skull had angled eyelids with shallow eye sockets, 2 nostrils, and a narrow slit-type mouth. Under the skull, you can see exposed bone. Now the skull is covered in a type of clay that gives the skull a more alien type appearance. But it is discovered that it is a real skull. But it isn't concluded that if it's an alien skull or if it's just an animal skull that has been preserved and then morphed in appearance because of the clay coating. But what's weird is apparently there have been tons of skulls discovered in Peru. Lots of them have elongated skulls, which aliens are said to have. Maybe it's evidence that alien species were once inhabitants there. In our sixth spot, we have the alien hands. Okay, this is where it gets even weirder. In the same area where the skull was found, they found a hand with only 3 elongated fingers. It has nothing to do with the previously mentioned skull though. The skull is tiny, whereas the hand is larger than a human hand. So this hand type thing is said to be made of bone type material and some kind of skin. Just like the skull, the hand is also coated with clay. X-rays of this hand show that each finger has 6 bones. Human hands only have 3. Each of the fingers also contains something that is thought to be a fingernail, but we don't know exactly what creature this hand is from. Some thinks that it's from an animal, others are convinced that it indeed is an alien hand.
Well, at number 5, let me introduce you guys to Fearless Felix, who is not an alien. He's just a crazy person.
Jumper away. Speed 725. Showing Felix at a stable.
Is this real life right now? That is absolutely insane. Why? I have been skydiving, but I jumped from like 8 to 10,000 feet. Felix jumped from over 128,000 feet. This guy is absolutely nuts. I think this guy almost reached the moon. Okay, maybe not quite. This guy wasn't inside of Earth and when he jumped, but luckily for him, it was a huge success. Okay, let me take you guys over to Mongolia, and at number 4. There was this 2-ton object that crashed to the earth near the Mongolian capital back in 2019. This object was added to the MUFON Witness database, which is actually the UFO Network's database. I didn't know there was a UFO database. How many aliens are on it? So people are actually believing this foreign object might be a UFO. The object looks like it has a rocket or a jet engine. It seems like the object came crashing down in a field of cows and no one knows what it is. On Reddit, people believed that it might be a hydrogen tank, and a lot of people think that this picture might actually be fake because one person pointed out, where's the crater that a heavy and large object would create? I mean, that is a pretty valid point. It's time to time travel for a sec in at number 3. Let me take you guys back like 80,000 years ago. I know it's a long time. And let's talk about the Huba meteorite that came crashing down on Earth. It wasn't until 1920 when a farmer found it on his field. Well, this thing weighs 60 tons, and it is known to be the largest known meteorite to be found. Today, it has been turned into a national monument, so now it's a great tourist attraction. Moving into number 2, let's talk about the meteorite that changed the history on Earth, like literally. More specifically, well, let's talk about the massive meteorite that might have been responsible for the extinction of the dinosaurs. If you guys don't believe this theory, what wiped out the dinosaurs, let me know in the comment section below and be as stupid as you guys want. I'll see what you guys type down there. Okay, that asteroid that you guys saw must have been huge if it left no dinosaurs behind. It is believed that the asteroid or comet was about 11 to 81 kilometers long, which is super massive. Finally, number 1, I saved the scariest for last. NASA actually predicts that in 2023, there's going to be an asteroid that is on a collision course with Earth that can do some pretty serious damage. The asteroid is twice the size of Big Ben, and I looked up Big Ben, and Big Ben is massive. And then imagine Big Ben, and then times it by 2, and then adding like fire all around it. That can ruin a whole city. Imagine if that hit like a dense city like New York, or what about if it hit like Shanghai, China? A population of over 24 million people. That can wipe out everyone. My biggest question right now is how accurate is NASA? I'm hoping that they're not too accurate. But then again, if NASA wasn't accurate, I don't know if that would be more scary.